guys, I'm DMAC from NBA Fantasy Bible, and along with me, as always, is Kayla Fonte, and together we're Between Two Hoops. Kayla, how you going?
I'm doing really well. How about you?
Doing really well. It's been a really busy week. It's been a massive week in the NBA, of course. It's been a busy week for myself as well. Nice long weekend. How was your weekend?
It was good. It was good. A little bit of relaxing, but also work. So I'll take it though.
Yeah, I was lucky. I didn't have work. Got to see a local basketball game. The Perth
Ooh.
Wildcats went to double overtime. I went with my nephew, so that was a lot of fun. And we celebrated Australia Day as well. So nice barbecue here in Australia. Pretty typical for Aussies to have a barbie, but yeah, good to catch up with family. But yeah, really good week. However, we have a special edition of Between Two Hoops. Today we're talking about NBA trade deadline and in particular stashes. Shall we get straight into it?
Let's do it.
Let's go. Okay, just to let you guys know, NBA trade deadline is less than 2 weeks away. It's about 11 days. So February 6th at 3 p.m. Eastern time in the US. So yeah, just make sure you cater to those times wherever you are watching around the world. It actually is 4 a.m. My time here in Perth. So that sort of sucks, but I will be up and raring to go. But I can't wait for trade deadline. A lot of rumors. Everyone loves getting involved with the rumors, but we're just going to put some perspective on those rumors and have a look at some potential stashes to look at as well. Let's look at some active stashes. And when we talk about active stashes, these are guys that will have value right now. So you can pick them up right now and they'll be good for you. However, come trade deadline, and we're hoping for some potential trades and hopefully some likely trades as well. We're hoping that these guys will get tremendous bumps in their fantasy value. Starting with Isaiah Collier. He's been on a bit of a roll recently, went into the starting lineup ahead of Keontae George, which was a bit of a surprise on the last game. But I think there's a little bit there for him. I know people don't like the fact that he's a high turnovers, pretty poor from the field, and he can hurt you at the free throw line as well. But if he gets that extra minutes, extra usage, I think he's a fantastic pickup, good stash, particularly in points leagues.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing too. Especially with his upside in certain categories, especially assists. That's his trademark. I believe he was averaging about 8 per game when he's starting, and he's only started a couple of games this season, but he's looked really good in that role. Giving you some points, a little bit of threes, a couple of steals. Nothing mind-boggling, but I think when he gets that opportunity down the stretch, he'll be fantastic.
And we know how hard it is to get assists off the waiver wire, and this guy can give you those high-level assists, but it is dependent on a couple of moves. So one of, or if not both, Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson. We've heard a lot of rumors about these guys, and you'll notice there we've got dependence on the right-hand side in that column. But yeah, Colin Sexton and or Jordan Clarkson to move to make way for Isaiah Collier. I don't know how it's all going to play out with Keontae George there as well. I think they can play in the backcourt together, but they've got to lean into this youth movement. And Collier, being a rookie, of course, rookie guards tend to struggle, particularly in fantasy, but I think there's enough there and enough potential upside for him to be a really nice stash.
Mhm.
Next one, we'll look at some Portland Trailblazers, but starting off with Donovan King. We know that he's started in the last 2 games. Looked okay in the first one. I think he got 4 blocks. Was pretty quiet last night. Played only about 20 minutes, only 2 blocks. The scoring isn't coming free flowing, but I think there's enough there to really look at stashing him.
Yeah, I think so too. The only problem is that the Portland has that three-headed monster right now, and I just think it's really likely that either Aiden or Williams will be moved. I mean, it's got to be guaranteed, right? Like, I want to see more Donovan Clingan. He's looked fantastic, especially defensively. Where are you going to find those blocks on the
Yeah,
waiver wire, right?
yeah. I
Especially when he's
talked
starting,
about
he's
the
averaging almost three.
exactly right. When he started 10 times this season. He's actually averaged 9.9 rebounds, 6.8 points, and 2.9 blocks. So that's just in about 22 minutes as well in those 10 starts. So we know he's got some issues with staying healthy. So I can't see him getting high 30 minutes. But if he's getting close to 30 minutes in a starting role, he could be a real game changer and, quite frankly, a league winner. But yeah, look at these highlights from that game against Charlotte. When was this? About 3 nights ago. So he did really well with those 4 blocks. But yeah, I really like Klingen. He's probably my number one stash of all these active guys that we're talking about right now. But really nice highlights, and we know of that potential from that big man position.
Yeah, he's definitely one of my top targets too. I mean, he's looked great. And I think that even in the unlikely scenario a trade doesn't happen, I think he's still going to have that silly season value. We all know about Portland shenanigans.
Yeah, those shenanigans, definitely, definitely. And a lot of these guys will have potential upside with not just trade deadline, but also, like you said, silly season shenanigans. So guys like, well, teams like Portland, of course, Washington, which we'll get to shortly,
Utah.
the Nets as well. Yeah, Utah, of course. So there's quite a few teams that will go through these shenanigans later in the season. But yeah, some nice highlights here for Donovan Klinger. Now, just back to some of his teammates. If Jeremy Grant, and again, Jeremy Grant, it's either going to be a trade or he's just going to sit down the back end of the season. That's going to help the likes of Danny Avdia, Scoot Henderson, and Tamani Kamara. We've seen these guys have value throughout. Kamara actually had a fantastic game last night. Scoot and Avdia, actually, all three playing really well. Scoot did drop off, but came back really nicely in the game last night. But it's relying on Grant being moved.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that this season is finally it's gonna happen. Fingers crossed at least. Abdia is a little bit harder to find on your waiver wire. I believe he's about 70% rostered, at least in Yahoo leagues. But I feel like some people have dropped him, especially after he had a couple of rough games a couple of months ago, and I think some people just didn't pick him up. So there is still that opportunity to go and grab him. Henderson and Kamara are a little bit easier to find on the waiver wire. Kamara for me is a more enticing option at the moment just because he's been balling out. Like you said, he had that great game recently. Henderson, too, we saw him be a silly season hero last year. So we know he has that potential. Yes, he's going to kill you in some categories, turnovers, field goal percentage, but his upside in the main categories is fantastic and steals as well.
Yeah, I remember last season as well as Delano Banton as well, silly season shenanigans, and he was at times a bit of a league winner. But yeah, very, very interesting. Jeremy Grant, one way or the other, he won't be playing down the stretch for the Portland Trailblazers. But yeah, watch this space and hopefully a trade will be facilitated, which will help these guys' value. Next one, Nikola Jovic. Now, he's been widely rostered recently, and that's because Jimmy Butler has been suspended. He's coming back from the latest suspension, the 2-game suspension. He'll be playing today. To what capacity and how much effort he gets into the game remains to be seen. But Nikola Jovic, I think he's a fantastic stash, and we've spoke about him before on previous episodes. We love his stat set.
Yeah, I agree with that too. It's possible even that some people drop Jovic just because Butler is returning, so that means he could be more available on the waivers. And I think it's 100% that Jimmy Butler is going to be traded this season. I just think that the relationship between him and the organization is just beyond repair, and there's no way that they can continue together. So it almost solidifies Jovic's value, even if he comes off the bench.
Yeah, he may be coming off the bench. We know that Keller Ware is now playing alongside of Bam Adebayo, which is fantastic. We love Keller Ware, but it has impacted Jovic. But I think there's still enough meat on that bone for him to have some value if Jimmy Butler is moved. And we'll see if anything comes back in return, and that's always going to change the dynamic. But yeah, similar to what you were saying, I think that relationship is untenable, and Pat Riley will do everything possible to retain or reinstate that Heat culture. We don't need a Jimmy Butler just ruffling up the feathers there for that Miami Heat team. Next two Washington guys should be already rostered, but if they're not, just make sure that they are. But Bilal Coulibaly and Alex Sarr are quite dependent, and they will get a really big bump in value if Kyle Kuzma and Jonas Valanciunas are moved.
Yeah, these guys are a little bit harder to find on the waivers, but they have been inconsistent at times, so it has led to some people dropping them. But we both know what they're capable of. We've seen them throughout this season have those solid stretches. And even if a trade doesn't manifest, they're still silly season heroes. And yeah, like you said, they should 100% be rostered.
Yeah, we hear a lot about Jonas Valanciunas going to a contender. The Lakers are always in those conversations about getting another center alongside of AD. So yeah, watch this space. I think, as you were saying, Alex Sarr is still going to be. This is not a contending team. They're a young team. He'll be playing big minutes, and I think Bilal Coulibaly will be the same. But we saw Kuzma ball out, and this is not a showcase thing. It was just him. He just wanted to play ball, and good on him. That was fine, but it doesn't really facilitate the improvement of his teammates either. So I would expect a trade to be forthcoming. Next one, Ayo Dosunmu. He's been a sneaky, fantastic pickup.
Mhm.
He has gone through a stretch of injury as well, so he may be available at the moment.
Yeah, I really like his game too. I think I'm one of the few people who held on during that stretch of injuries. It was also a deeper league, but I think it's likely that a trade will happen. Most likely Zach Levine to me, but they just have a crowded backcourt at the moment, so it's been hard for him to carve out those minutes and to take his game to the next level after that breakout season last year. But any one of these players, Lonzo Ball, Zach Levine, Kobe White, who could be traded, that would open up more minutes, more usage for AO.
It would, and that would make him a must roster guy. I think he's probably on a must roster list anyway. Zach Levine's come out and said that he wants to be on the Bulls team past the deadline, which is great to hear for him, and he loves being in Chicago. But it remains to be seen whether or not he will be on that team. Same goes for Lonzo Ball, coming back from injury. I think he's looked really good, and he's someone I've got my eye on in terms of an ad right now. Anyway, but Ayo Dosunmu, definitely keep an eye on him, and it could be worth a stash right now. Keep in mind, deadline, just a reminder, less than 2 weeks away. So this is probably the time that you want to be stashing some of these guys. Next one, we know about the Brooklyn Nets and their shenanigans, but Cameron Johnson's pretty much all but gone from that team, right? He's injured at the moment, but I think he's probably one of the more definite ones that I believe will be traded.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, the amount of rumors surrounding this guy and all the teams that have come forward with their interest, yeah, I think it's all but guaranteed. And if that's the case, there's so many Nets who will benefit from his value. Like Noah Clowney is someone who we were high on heading into the season. After we saw him last year in silly season when he was looking great, so I think he's going to benefit. And he's been a bit rocky this year. But I mean, losing someone with high usage like Cam Johnson, that's going to open up a lot more minutes and production for Clowney.
Yeah, Noah Clowney's turned into a volume shooter and hasn't been the greatest shooting either. But he has shown that he's got versatility about his game. It's not just that big man playing in the post and getting those blocks. It would be nice to see those blocks come back, but we still have some big men on the Nets team as well, which we'll speak about shortly when we talk about Nick Claxton and Day'Ron Sharpe. But yeah, a few guys will get some value. Zaire Williams, and we've seen it with Cam Johnson and Cam Thomas currently out. But Zaire Williams, Jalen Wilson, Keon Johnson, but that's more in line with Cam Thomas being out as well. But all of these guys will get a bump in value. Now, the next screen is just guys we want to monitor. So not necessarily active stashes, but guys that we think if a trade does occur, they're guys that you need to just quickly go and grab. So Jaylen Smith, again, this is one of our guys, one of my sleepers, real deep sleepers come in the preseason, but his value is dependent on Nikola Vucevic being traded away from the Bulls. And we've heard this for many a season, but is this the season to be done?
I think it's possible. We were hearing a lot of interest from the Warriors in Vucevic, but then things have kind of died down. So I'm not 100% sure if a trade will happen. But if it does, Jaylen Smith is just like the obvious pickup here. I mean, he's looked so good in limited minutes. If he has that consistent starting role, he's looked great. And the one time that he started this season, he got a double double and 5 blocks. So that's just a little glimpse into his potential.
Yeah, an efficient big man. He can shoot the three, he can get the blocks. It's pretty much a fantasy goldmine. But yeah, Vucevic's salary makes it difficult with salary matching and trying to get that trade to a contender as well. But it remains to be seen. We have 11 days to wait. Hopefully something happens for Jaylen Smith's value. But for Vucevic's value, yeah, he's playing really well this season. And probably a little bit of a surprise to myself and probably a few others as well. But yeah, playing really good basketball right now. Next is Kyle Filikowski and Bryce Sensabaugh, but this is dependent on John Collins being moved, and I think it will happen.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. The Jazz have had a couple of players who I've heard like some rumors about, like John Collins and Sexton, the most. But Sensabaugh is someone who I really have my eye on, especially. I mean, he had those 2 back-to-back like amazing performances in a couple of weeks ago, and he looked great. Filipowski too. He can give you those defensive stats, but it does really depend on Collins. If that doesn't happen, just still watch out in silly season.
Silly season, Larry Markkinen cannot be traded. However, he can be and sat down during silly season and expect that. So he will be. He definitely will be. And we've already seen it. There's pockets of games where he's missing. So we will get some value from some of these younger Utah Jazz guys. Next one, Patrick Williams has sort of been in the news and just some trade rumors around him. Just re-signed with the Bulls in the offseason. But if he is moved, Matas Buzelis, the rookie, could come into some value here.
Yeah, I've heard some rumors with Patrick Williams. Honestly, I do hope that he is traded just because I'm really intrigued by Bazelis and his fantasy game. And I think he really needs that opportunity to shine. So I'm hoping.
It might be good for Patrick Williams as well, just a fresh start, trying to get away from Chicago and just show what he's made of, because there was a stretch earlier in the season where he did look like a must-roster guy, and I think I did have him rostered momentarily, but yeah, he's disappointed for the majority of the season. Next one, the aforementioned Day'Ron Sharpe. This is dependent on Nick Claxton being traded, and I don't know if it's going to happen. I think this one is quite unlikely, but if it does, we know that Day'Ron Sharpe can step in and be that big man, get you those good field goal percentage, good level of rebounds and blocks, of course, traditional big man stats.
Yeah, I don't think a Claxton trade will happen either. I feel like his value is super low right now. He has a really disappointing season. Fantasy managers have been really frustrated, especially. But if that's the case, yeah, Sharp definitely. Even Clowney would benefit as well. There's a lot of rumors surrounding the Nets right now, so it's not even limited to just Claxton and Cam Johnson. So it's still something to keep an eye on.
Absolutely. Next one, another big man is Kelly Olynyk. We saw him last season be a silly season winner. Jakob Poeltl did sit quite a few games come the end of the last season. I don't think he's going to be traded. I think he's going to be the future center for the Raptors. But again, this is down to silly season shenanigans. But if he does get traded, unlikely, but if he does, sky's the limit for Kelly Olynyk. We just love his fantasy game.
Oh yeah, he's fantastic. I loved him last season too. I picked him up in so many leagues. But yeah, I just don't think that trade is gonna happen. Like I've heard a couple of rumors, but nothing super significant. But it's like you said, it's silly season when he's gonna get that opportunity.
Yeah. And the final two, Cole Anthony and Yusuf Nurkic. This is not about people being traded away and giving them value. This is more about them themselves being traded away. And I think that Cole Anthony, if he's given an opportunity elsewhere and if he's seen as surplus to requirements in Orlando, perhaps he can find some fantastic ongoing fantasy value. We did see that stretch while Jalen Suggs was out injured, where Cole Anthony was fantastic. He was a must-roster guy in 12s. But Suggs is back. He is questionable for today, by the way, so keep an eye out for that. But Cole Anthony, if he does get traded away, I think he can have fantastic value.
I think so too, especially if he has that starting role. I mean, we've seen what he's done when Suggs is sidelined, so he just needs that clear pathway to minutes, and then his value will be a lot higher than what it is now with the backlogged backcourt on the
Yeah.
Magic.
Yeah. And similar situation for Yusuf Nurkic. He's completely fallen out of favor at the Suns. They've brought in Nick Richards. Yusuf Nurkic is available, but it is not playing. So his
Mhm.
value is next to nothing in fantasy stakes at the moment.
Yeah, if he stays on the Suns, then I'm definitely gonna drop him. But I'm just holding on just for that hope that he does get traded somewhere where he's gonna have any kind of fantasy value. Because right now it's nothing.
Yeah, and it's a tough hole because he's not been designated as injured, so you can't just stash him away in your IL or your IR. So you're copping donuts in the meantime. I don't know if he's going to play in the between now and trade deadline. Maybe he plays a few minutes, but they've brought in Nick Richards to do a job, and he's their starting center. We'll see what happens with Yusuf Nurkic, but I think he could have a role elsewhere, and that would then get him some value back in terms of fantasy.
Mhm.
Okay. That's a wrap, Kayla. Any parting words?
Yeah, I think now's the time that you really have to start acting on stashes. Next week will be the trade deadline. I believe it's next week, February. Oh my God, time's going by so fast. But for the week of the trade deadline, you want to make sure that you monitor your ads. Don't spend them all at once with streaming, because there could be situations where players are traded that are unexpected that could open up new pockets of value for other players. So just keep an eye on that.
Absolutely. And another tip, and a lot of you already know this, but know your worst player or your worst couple of
Mhm.
players, because a lot of trades can happen and you may be making moves. And as you said, keep those transactions up your sleeve, because you may be making multiple moves and dropping someone you may have just picked up for a better situation. So keep that up your sleeve and keep that in mind as well. But Thank you so much, Kayla. Oh, before we go, any other news? Got your show BBB coming up.
Yeah, we're going to record an episode tonight with a special guest, so keep an eye out on that.
Fantastic. Make sure you give Kayla a follow on Twitter or X at Kayla_Fonte. You can find me on Twitter at NBA Fantasy Bible. Make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Blue Sky as well. So give us a follow on all of those major platforms. But until next time, Kayla, until next time, guys, thank you so much. See ya.
Thank you.